Well, it's never too late for an update, right? I know it's been several months since I posted a video. Lots been going on. So if you remember the project that I had purchased months ago, actually a couple years ago, well, that one sold. Then the one that I purchased after that, which had the yellow wings, I sold pretty much all that as well. And so I ended up buying this. So in order to get the plane down here, I had to cram it in the back of a 26-foot U-Haul truck. Took a little bit of doing. First you have to take the wings off, and before you do that you've got to drain all the fuel out and remove a couple other connections for the ailerons and flaps. Maybe the bigger job was getting these extensions on the wheels or the landing gear. Now if you look carefully in this picture here, you can see that there's these weird brackets on, and the wheels are actually turned inside on the gear legs, and this raised up the plane a little bit, but primarily it was getting the wheels narrow enough to fit inside the U-Haul truck. And then, so the previous owner and his buddy helped me out a lot. We spent a whole day getting it prepped. Then we were able to roll it up into the U-Haul and load it up, and 850 miles later, I had her home. So this plane is the same model. It's a BD-4. It's all done. It's been flying. The only problem is it had a prop strike. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm in the process of having the propeller worked on, rebuilt, and I'm also going to be taking off the engine. I've rebuilt several different types of engines: automotive, motorcycle, even aircraft when I was going to A&P school. So this is not completely foreign to me. So I'll give you a quick little view of the plane here. So like I mentioned a second ago, the plane is completely done and it was flying. You know, the only thing is it had the prop strike, so we need to rebuild the engine or take it down for inspection and see if anything is wrong with it. So this is the fuselage here. Here's the two wings. So these wings have actually been lengthened by a couple feet on either side. There's the other wing there. And we'll go up to the side here. So this plane actually has clear doors on both sides. So it's going to provide a really nice view when we're flying around. It's got a Lycoming IO360, so the I is for injected. So this has about 200 horsepower, so make this plane scoot pretty good. I do have the full wheel fairings for it. They're just not on right now because of how we had to transport it. Maybe I'll show some pictures of that. And so here's looking down the other side of the fuselage, pretty much the same as the other side. Now one thing I really like about this plane is it actually has gull wing doors, so it makes it easy for getting in and out of it. And it looks cool too, like the DeLorean. So here's the interior. Right now it's just got the two front seats mounted, and in the back is just, it's got the wheel pants and some other exterior trim parts, but you can put another seat in the back there. And up front here we've got a pretty nice VFR panel. So here's a couple shots of what it looks like with the cowling removed. You can see the exhaust and the intakes. There's the top of the engine. So we start taking off the exhaust and spark plug wires and all the connections to the engine, the propeller governor, control, all that stuff. Remove that, and here's what it starts looking like. And a couple more bolts later, 4 big bolts on the back, and then the engine pops off. I had a friend of mine help me disassemble the engine, so we took it all apart, kind of boxed up all the parts nicely, and I took it over to the engine rebuilder for him to do his inspection and work on the engine. So here's where I currently am at with the panel. Now in the previous little video clips or pictures you saw, you know, this instrument panel, and it had the artificial horizon here and the directional gyro. Now I know there's going to be a lot of pilots that are watching this. I'm hoping that people that are maybe new to aviation will learn some things here. So directional gyro is basically just it's sort of like a compass that you have to align every once in a while with the magnetic compass. And it's just an instrument to use to make sure you know which direction you're going, north, south, east, or west. These two instruments are driven by a vacuum pump. It's basically just like an air pump that's on the back of an engine, and they can fail. So what I'm trying to do ultimately is get this whole plane set up for flying in the clouds or in sprint conditions. That's very expensive to do. So right now I'm just trying to get it into a better day VFR plane. So when I first got this plane, it had a really old school navigation device. It's called a LORAN. Those are obsolete now. It had one comm radio, and it had a transponder, which you have to have. So the upgrades that I'm doing, I'm going to have a new audio panel. An audio panel is just something that basically switches between the different comm radios and nav radios that you have. So it's going to have an audio panel here. It's going to have a nav comm radio here. It's going to have a backup comm radio here, and then a nav radio, and then the transponder down here. So the new nav radio that I'm putting in is going to drive this VOR instrument, which is going to be mounted right here where the old directional gyro used to be. Now it's a little unconventional for your typical 6-pack panel, and the 6-pack panel is when you've got your airspeed, artificial horizon, altimeter, VSI, directional gyro, and turn and bank coordinator. But that's okay, you know, I'm kind of limited on space here. So VOR is going to go in this hole right here. And up here, since I'm deleting my vacuum pump, I am now installing an electrically driven instrument. It's an EFIS, and it's a AvMap Ultra EFIS. This thing is really cool. There's a lot of things like this on the market now. They make it easy to have a lot of capability in a really small area. So if you see here, this is round, and it's going to fit right inside this hole here. And yes, I will have to modify my little auxiliary lights a little bit, but this is going to fit in here, and when it slides back, it won't really be covering up these instruments. And what this Ultra EFIS does is basically everything that the 6-pack does or did and more. And so we have here, here it is. It's got the altimeter, airspeed indicator, artificial horizon, directional gyro, side slip indicator, vertical speed indicator, automatic direction finder with GPS, G-meter, and magnetic compass. Now this is one of the very few that I could find on the market that actually has a built-in magnetic compass. A lot of these units use GPS data to derive their information, especially things like their nav data. So they can basically simulate things like VOR information like this, and also they can simulate glide slope and localizer, which is something when you're coming in for a landing, it makes sure the plane is on the glide path and you know, center, side to side, and up and down. Okay, well, what if your GPS signal gets lost? Okay, since I'm replacing my directional gyro, all I would have then in this plane is this magnetic compass here, and I wanted to have. I'm always looking for redundancy. You know, every aircraft you want to have dual systems if you can. So, being that this had a actual magnetic compass inside, electronic magnetic compass, that's a backup to this whiskey compass right here. Replacing this whole radio stack here is a bit of a job. I'm gonna have to do a bunch of wiring. This is just one plug for the audio panel here. Now the audio panel does have most of the wiring on it, but there's gonna be a lot of wiring that's involved so that the audio panel can talk with the Navcom, the nav, and all the other radio equipment. And we can kind of give like a little peek back here of some more of the wiring. And there's quite a bit of space here to work, and it's actually pretty easy to remove this whole instrument panel. So what I've done so far is I've done the mounting. I've modified this rack in here to adapt all these trays, and the cool thing is that all the radios slide right in here, and all the electrical connections, once you have these finished, are all mounted back in here. So if you ever need to replace the radio or do some work on it, there's a screw right on the front that you kind of unscrew, and it lets the whole radio slide out, and you can take it to a electronic shop and have them work on it, or buy another one to replace it without having to, you know, get back here and undo all the wiring. So this is kind of where I'm at with my panel. You know, going to replace a couple other things, like this tack right here is going to get a digital tack, and since my new AvMap Ultra EFIS is going to be also has a built-in G-meter, I could also replace this. I'm not quite sure what I put there. But so this is a bit of the work that's got to go on. So it's engine, panel, little fuel leak I have to adjust, and then a little bit of maintenance on the tail of the plane.